Oh my god, YN. You really married a tie seller? Like, seriously? The words, soaked in mock laughter and champagne, drifted through the rooftop brunch like cigarette smoke. Light, toxic, impossible to ignore. YN smiled, not because it was funny, but because that's what she had learned to do. Smile when others didn't understand, when their voices dripped with ignorance, when the world saw her husband as ordinary. Across from her sat Mina, lips glossy with judgment, flicking her golden hair over one shoulder like she was presenting herself to a camera that didn't exist. Beside her, Serena chuckled, not cruelly, but ignorantly. Come on, YN. You were the girl who swore you'd marry someone rich, mysterious, powerful, Serena said through a mouthful of avocado toast. Now you're what? Helping your man stack neckties? YN stirred her latte gently. He owns the store, Mina snorted. A boutique in Itaewon, please. Owning a shoebox doesn't make him a king? Her grip tightened on the spoon, knuckles paling, but her face didn't change. Years with Jungkook had taught her many things. How to keep a mask on, how to speak softly even when your world was on fire, and most importantly, how to survive in silence. What her friends didn't know was that the man they were mocking, Jeon Jungkook, wasn't just the owner of a boutique. The boutique was a facade, a carefully planted illusion. Jungkook was power, not the kind that screamed, but the kind that whispered. And those who didn't listen, they disappeared. When she returned home that evening, the air in the apartment was darker than usual, not in light, but in energy. The curtains were drawn, the scent of leather and cedar wood wafted through the air, and Jungkook stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his silhouette sharp, untouchable. He was still in his work clothes, a navy shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, tattoos half hidden under gold-toned cuffs. One hand held a glass of whiskey, the other loosely clenched. "You're late," he said quietly, not turning. "They wanted to go shopping after brunch." "Did they?" he murmured, swirling the amber liquid. "Did they say anything interesting at brunch?" Y or N paused, so he had heard. She didn't ask how. She never needed to. "You know how they are," she said lightly, slipping out of her coat. Jungkook finally turned. His eyes, dark, unreadable, met hers. The kind of gaze that made kings kneel. "They called me a tie seller." She nodded softly. "It doesn't matter, Kook." "Oh, it matters," he said, voice dropping an octave. "They disrespected my wife." YN walked over, placing a hand on his chest. His heart thrummed under her palm. Steady, dangerous. "You don't need to do anything," she whispered. He tilted his head, brushing his nose against her hair. "I already did." Her breath caught. "Jungkook." "I didn't hurt them," he said, voice low, lips ghosting against her temple. "But by tomorrow, Mina's father will lose the government contract he's been hiding behind. And Serena's brother will receive a very compelling, anonymous tip about his offshore accounts." "That's not fair," she breathed. "No," Jungkook murmured, "but neither is mocking my queen." Later that night, under the weight of dim golden light and silk sheets, Jungkook traced his fingers over her collarbone. Slow, reverent. "I hate when they make you feel small," he whispered, voice husky. "I don't feel small," she replied breathlessly. "Not when I'm with you." He smiled, barely. "You married a salesman, huh?" he teased, mouth brushing against her skin. "Is that what they think?" She nodded, arching slightly as his hand slid down her side. "Then let me show you," he growled into her ear, "what a salesman can do." The kiss that followed was not sweet. It was possession, worship, war, and surrender at once. He lifted her as if she weighed nothing, carried her to the edge of the bed, and whispered promises that burned hotter than fire. And just before the candlelight dimmed entirely, his voice broke the silence. "They can laugh all they want, but you'll be screaming my name tonight." By morning, everything had changed. The sunlight that filtered through the sheer curtains of their penthouse felt calmer, almost apologetic. Jungkook was gone by the time YN woke, but a black envelope rested on her bedside table. Inside it was a single note, his handwriting in sharp, deliberate ink. Watch the news at 9. JJK. She didn't need to ask why. YN padded barefoot to the kitchen, her satin robe brushing along the tiled floor like a whisper. As she poured her coffee, the TV clicked on in the living room. Right on cue. Breaking news, the reporter's voice cut crisply. Government watchdogs have flagged a major conflict of interest in the procurement contracts awarded to Orion Systems, led by Park Sung-hwan, father of socialite Mina Park. She set her mug down. No names were mentioned last night, no addresses, nothing spoken aloud. And yet Jungkook had moved the entire board in 12 hours, without ever raising his voice. Later that day, YN met Mina at their usual cafe. The woman arrived late, flustered with a cloud of chaos surrounding her that no designer bag could conceal. "Did you see?" Mina hissed, barely sitting. "Some media vultures dug up my dad's projects, said something about bribes and shell companies. He didn't even do anything." YN took a sip of her latte. "That's awful." Mina narrowed her eyes. "You don't look surprised. I read the news every morning. That boutique husband of yours probably hasn't even heard of stocks." YN tilted her head, smiling sweetly. "He does own Armani," Mina scoffed. "The cologne?" "No," YN said, her tone soft. "The company." Mina blinked. YN rose from her seat, sliding her sunglasses on with elegance she hadn't earned from riches, but from survival. From knowing exactly who stood behind her and what he was capable of. As she turned to leave, her phone vibrated with a text from Jungkook. "On your left, walk to the black car." She spotted it instantly, a matte black Maybach, windows tinted deeper than shadows. A suited man opened the back door for her wordlessly, and she stepped inside. Jungkook was there, legs crossed, hands gloved, phone resting on his lap. His gaze met hers with the weight of someone who owned every room, even when sitting silent in the back seat of a moving vehicle. "How was brunch?" he asked. "Delightfully tragic." He smirked. "Did she mention her father?" "Right before choking on a macaron." "Good," he said simply, reaching over to brush her hair from her face. "People forget who you are." YN looked at him, lips parting slightly. "And who am I, Jungkook?" He leaned in close, whispering like he was sharing a prayer. "You're mine." That night he didn't take her in a rush. He unwrapped her, button by button, strap by strap, until she stood before him in nothing but trust and the memory of 1,000 stolen moments. He kissed her like a man starved, not for flesh, but for silence, for the parts of her only he was allowed to see. He took his time, palming her thighs, tracing her hips, lifting her effortlessly onto the marble counter in the darkened kitchen. The city lights danced in her eyes as he kissed his way down her stomach, lips like smoke, breath hot. And when he dropped to his knees between her legs, there were no words. Only gasps, only hands in his hair, only her begging the stars not to burn out before he finished. In the early hours of dawn, they lay in bed tangled like roots beneath the earth. Her head rested on his chest, rising and falling with every slow breath he took. "Jungkook," she whispered into the dark, "do you ever regret hiding who you are?" He didn't answer right away, then softly, "No. I regret letting you walk into a world where you had to choose between being feared or ignored." She looked up at him. "And now?" "Now they fear you," he said, "because of me." She shook her head. "No, Jungkook, they fear you. I just wear the ring." He reached for her hand, brought it to his lips, then let them see it shine. The next morning, a new name had taken over the trending charts. YN Jeon, the mystery wife of Seoul's shadow tycoon. No photos, no full name, just glimpses, just whispers. The internet knew someone had power, but no one knew how deep it went. Her friends stopped texting. her inbox filled with articles and theories. And just like that, the girl they laughed at became a story they could only speculate about. It was supposed to be a quiet dinner, just 5 people, just friends. But when YN walked into the marble-walled private dining room of La Sirene, escorted by a silent black-suited driver and draped in an off-shoulder obsidian dress Jungkook had selected, she felt the atmosphere shift. Serena was already there, nervous, tapping her wine glass. Mina, not surprisingly, had backed out last minute, citing a family emergency. YN didn't need to ask what kind. Across the table sat Tai, a mutual acquaintance known more for his gossip than his taste in wine. And next to him was a newcomer, slim, tall, confidently unaware of what storm he was stepping into. Kai, Serena said, rising. He just moved from Tokyo. Kai, this is Y or N. Kai looked her over with interest. You're the one married to that, boutique guy? YN smiled, her lipstick a deep, vengeful red. Yes, he raised his glass. Cute. Bet you make the money in the relationship. Serena's eyes widened. Kai? But YN just laughed. He makes enough. We don't count coins at home. We count countries. Tay chuckled nervously. Right, your guy is into suits or something? He owns his silence, YN said smoothly. And others pay dearly for it. Kai snorted. You're funny. That was the moment the door opened, and Jungkook walked in. Every chair shifted slightly, every eye drawn like gravity to the man in the black silk shirt and matching suit. No tie, no watch, no smile, just power, bottled in silence. Y or N stood instantly. You're early. I missed you, he said simply. He kissed her temple, then took the seat beside her with the quiet finality of a verdict. Kai blinked. You're YN's husband? Jungkook didn't answer right away. He poured himself a glass of wine, swirling it slowly. Do you know what makes a tie valuable, Mr. Kai? He asked, without looking at him. Kai shifted in his chair. Silk? No, Jungkook said, finally raising his eyes. The neck it wraps around. The room fell silent. Dinner continued. Kind of. Jungkook said little. He didn't need to. Every time someone opened their mouth, he listened with the kind of stillness that made people wish they hadn't spoken at all. But YN knew that stillness. It wasn't boredom, it was calculation. So, Jungkook, Tae finally said, forcing a smile. What exactly do you do, man? Jungkook looked at him calmly. I sell obedience. Serena laughed nervously. Is that, like, a brand name or something? Jungkook leaned forward, his voice low but deadly clear. It's just what people offer when they realize who I am. Kai tried to laugh it off. You're joking, right? What, are you Mafia or something? Y or N froze. Jungkook smiled then, the kind of smile that made shadows crawl up the walls. I'm just a salesman, he said quietly. Didn't you say so? When they got home, the silence was heavy, not tense, just loaded. YN stood by the window, the lights of Seoul sparkling like stars frozen mid-fall. You didn't have to come, she murmured. I did, Jungkook replied, standing behind her. I don't like when you're cornered. They don't matter. They matter because you mattered to them, once, she turned. They're scared of you now. They should be, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. But I'd rather they respect you more than they fear me. She studied his face, so beautiful in the soft apartment light, yet shadowed with things she would never fully see. But he was hers, and in a world of masks, that was all she needed. Thank you, she said softly. Jungkook stepped closer. For what? For being exactly who they said you weren't. His lips brushed hers. And who do you think I am? YN. She kissed him back, slow and deep. You're mine, she whispered. That's all I care about. That night, Jungkook didn't allow her to sleep right away. He kissed her like he needed to erase every word ever spoken against her. He laid her down in the center of the bed like something sacred, mouth dragging over her skin with reverence and fire. At one point, his voice was low against her inner thigh. "Let them wonder who I am," he said, just before tasting her. "Let them burn with questions, while you fall apart on answers only I can give." And fall apart she did. Again and again. Until her name didn't feel like hers anymore. Only a sound gasped into darkness, owned by the only man who ever made silence feel like worship. It wasn't the first time YN found herself questioning loyalty, but it was the first time she found proof. The phone in her hand buzzed again, another anonymous message flashing across the screen. Each one carried a screenshot, each one a whisper from someone hiding behind encrypted shadows. Photos of her, of Jungkook, of their home, their restaurant outings, even the private garden on their rooftop no one had ever been allowed to visit. "They're watching you. She's the one who leaked it." Check Serena's inbox. YN's heart pounded, not from fear, from fury. Someone was feeding the outside world pieces of their life, little breadcrumbs, leading toward a discovery that could shatter everything. Jungkook's entire empire depended on silence, and someone was daring to break it. That night, she waited in the penthouse living room, arms folded, lights dimmed. When Jungkook walked in, jacket over his shoulder, tie loosened, eyes already locked on hers. He immediately knew. "What happened?" he asked, crossing the room. She tossed the phone onto the coffee table. He picked it up, scanned the messages, then stilled. Silence bloomed like smoke between them. "I've already blocked the trace," he said eventually. Encrypted, routed through 5 dummy servers. But they were right about one thing. He handed her the phone back. "Serena's the leak?" YN stared at him. "You're sure?" "I don't guess, sweetheart." Her throat tightened. "She was my friend." "She was," he agreed softly. "Now she's an informant." YN sat down, shaking slightly. "So what now? You destroy her too?" He knelt beside her, placing a hand over hers. "I don't destroy people you once loved," Jungkook said gently. "I give you the choice." 2 nights later, Serena invited YN for a wine tasting at a luxurious rooftop lounge downtown. Said it was a girl's thing. Said she missed her YN. Accepted she wore black again. Sleek, elegant, unforgiving. Jungkook offered her his knife before she left. She kissed his cheek and declined. "I only need one weapon tonight," she whispered, tapping her temple. The rooftop was draped in soft, golden lights, the air crisp with late evening chill. Serena greeted her with a hug too long and eyes too bright. "You look amazing," she said. "I almost didn't recognize you." YN smiled. "That's the point, isn't it?" They sat. Waiters poured wine. The view was beautiful, towers glittering like jewels, but YN only saw the lies. Serena talked. About nothing, about shoes, travel, the market. YN listened, then slowly leaned forward. "I got some interesting texts recently," she said, voice light as champagne bubbles. "Anonymous, but detailed. Someone's been watching me." Serena blinked. "Creepy." "Who?" Y or N tilted her head. "You tell me." Serena stiffened, her smile faltering. YN placed her phone on the table. One tap. The screenshots appeared. "You leaked our photos," she said, voice lower now, ice threading through it. "You gave them access. You sold us." I didn't save it," YN said coldly. "I let it slide when you laughed at my marriage, when you whispered about my husband behind my back. But this?" She stood slowly, placing her napkin down. "This was treason." Serena rose too, face pale. YN. "You don't understand. They approached me. They knew things. I didn't give them everything, I just gave enough to make me a target, YN finished. A black car pulled up at the curb below. You're lucky I came here alone tonight, YN whispered, her voice like velvet and razors. He would have done far worse than this. Serena was shaking now. I'll delete everything. I'll fix it. You won't, YN said, because by the time you wake up tomorrow, you'll be off every guest list. Every private circle. No one will touch your name again. Please, no, YN said, turning her back. We don't plead in this family. We punish. Jungkook was waiting on the balcony when she returned. Shirt half unbuttoned, a single glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked at her once, just once, and knew it was done. She cried? He asked. Not enough. Do you regret it? She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. Only that I didn't see her lies sooner. He kissed her temple. That's why I stay in the shadows, he murmured. Because the spotlight blinds people. You trusted your friends. I trust no one. YN looked up. Except me. He cupped her face, eyes burning like dark fire. You're not people. You're the only thing keeping me human that night. Jungkook worshipped her like he needed to atone for the cruelty of the world. He pressed her into silk sheets and kissed her until she forgot the names of every person who ever doubted her. His mouth moved lower, his hands anchoring her thighs, and when he took his time below her waist, she gasped his name like it was a confession. Her hands clawed at his shoulders, legs trembling, and just before she shattered under him, he whispered, Let them mock, let them watch, let them burn. You were never meant for them. You were made for kings. The gala at the Elysian Tower was supposed to be untouchable, an exclusive event for Seoul's elite. Diplomats, CEOs, celebrities draped in couture, photographers with lenses worth more than cars. Everyone came to be seen, but no one was expecting her. YN entered on Jungkook's arm like sin wrapped in silk. Her dress, scarlet, not red, scarlet. The kind of color that made men pause and women reassess their husbands. Her makeup, soft, sharp, immaculate. Her posture, regal. Jungkook, beside her, wore a custom black suit embroidered with faint gunmetal threads. No tie. A subtle nod to the jokes once made about his salesman life. Tonight no one dared laugh, because tonight they knew. She's here, whispered someone as the couple entered the ballroom. Is that really her? The one who married Jeon Jungkook, the silent king. People moved aside without instruction. That's what fear did. It parted crowds. But the real crack in the evening came not from silence. It came from Francesca. A rising actress, famously arrogant, and, until recently, a former flame of Jungkook's. She'd once told a reporter that Jungkook's married a nobody with pretty eyes. Tonight, she said it again, only louder. Y or N, Francesca called, fake champagne smile in place. That dress, did you borrow it from the boutique your husband manages? YN turned, slow as honey, eyes cold and calm. Francesca continued, voice sugar-laced poison. It's so inspiring, really, a salesman's wife among us royalties. You must feel like Cinderella. YN smiled, just a flicker. Then she walked up, heel clicking sharply on marble, and slapped Francesca clean across the face. The crack echoed. Cameras froze. Champagne halted mid-air. Francesca gasped, holding her cheek, lips trembling. Are you insane? YN leaned in, voice sweet as cyanide. No, darling. I'm married. Security didn't move. No one moved. Not until Jungkook approached behind his wife. Slow, controlled, terrifyingly calm. He placed a hand on YN's back. Enough? More than. Francesca tried to regain her footing. You can't. There are witnesses. She assaulted me. Jungkook tilted his head, voice smooth. Funny. We were just discussing your assault case, the one from Paris, remember? Her eyes widened. I wonder, Jungkook added, how long you'll last in this city once the papers run with that story. She vanished within the hour. Later that night, in the back of their bulletproof car, YN stared out the window. "You didn't stop me," she murmured. "I would have done worse, Gumsto." Sang. Said simply, she turned to him. "You don't regret the gala?" "I regret not inviting more cameras," he said, brushing his thumb over her knuckles. "They needed to see what happens when someone touches what's mine." She exhaled, eyes fluttering closed. "I think I scared them." "You think?" He smirked. "You ruled them." When they reached the penthouse, she didn't undress. Jungkook did. Every zipper, every clasp, every inch of fabric. Then he lifted her onto the table, silk pooling beneath her, crownless, but no less a queen. And when his mouth found her heat again, her back arched so hard she nearly knocked over a wineglass. "You're still shaking," he whispered. "You're still kneeling," she shot back. He chuckled, dark and reverent. "For you, always." The next morning, headlines blazed with variations of the same truth. YN Jeon shocks high society with gala showdown. Silent queen, no more. Mafia king's wife strikes back. One slap, 1,000 messages. Who really runs Seoul? Serena texted. Mina didn't dare. Francesca fled to Milan. And in the quiet of their kitchen, Jungkook handed YN a single envelope. Inside was an invitation, black and gold, no return address, just a symbol, a skull, crowned. She looked up at him. "What is this?" Jungkook leaned in, eyes glinting. "Your next battlefield." The symbol was simple, a skull, crowned, embossed in black wax. But it wasn't just a design, it was a warning, a mark of power. And in Jungkook's world, it meant only one thing, the circle. A hidden society of global elites who operated above government, beyond borders, and beneath every major crime syndicate. They didn't deal in money, they dealt in loyalty, secrets, and control. And they had summoned her. Y or N stared at the invitation again. "They know about me?" she asked, voice steady. Jungkook nodded, his jaw tense. "They've been watching ever since Francesca ran. Word travels fast in our world." "What do they want?" "They want to meet the woman who slapped power without flinching." Y or N exhaled. "And you're letting me go?" "You're not going alone," he said. "I'll be at your side, but they'll test you. Watch every move. One mistake and they'll try to own you." She looked him in the eye. "No one owns me," he smirked. "That's why they're interested." The circle's gathering was held in a private estate deep in the mountains outside Busan. The journey there felt like descending into another world. Black sedans driving in perfect formation. Helicopters shadowing overhead. Phones confiscated at the checkpoint. The estate itself was older than the city, draped in ivy and secrets. Candles lined the path to the entrance, flickering like tiny ghosts guiding them inside. YN's gown tonight was nothing soft. It was tailored black velvet, slit high, lined with hidden knives. Jungkook wore a suit darker than midnight, his silver cufflinks etched with a dragon's fang. The doors opened. Silence. A long oval table dominated the room. Around it sat 12 individuals, men and women, some in masks, others not. No one introduced themselves. No one smiled. One of them, a woman with wine-dark lips and a sharp white bob, spoke first. "So," she purred, "this is the queen who made Seoul tremble." YN met her gaze, unblinking. Not Seoul, just the insects in it. Laughter, dry and cautious, rippling across the table. The woman nodded. "Interesting. We called you because we're considering inclusion." "Inclusion?" YN said, tilting her head. "Power attracts power," the woman said, "but only those who prove they understand the game may play it." Another man, older, English accent, leaned forward. "If you sit with kings, You must be willing to bleed like one. Jungkook's hand brushed hers under the table. A silent question. Ready? She squeezed back, always. They were led to a side chamber for the test. It wasn't physical. Not exactly. It was psychological. Designed to fracture trust. Inside the room was a dossier. Photos, surveillance shots, bank records, fake ones, all manufactured to suggest YN had betrayed Jungkook. To the government, to enemies, even to Francesca. And in the center of the room was a silver gun. Unloaded. A test of response. Loyalty. Reaction. YN didn't even blink. She looked directly into the hidden camera in the corner and said, "If he believes this, I don't belong beside him. If he doesn't, then he already knows what I'm about to do." She grabbed the file and threw it into the fireplace. When the flames caught, she turned her back to the gun. Not once did she touch it. Outside, the circle watched through monitors. One of them nodded slowly. "She's not like the others." "She's better," another muttered. The final part of the night was a masked ball. Every person wore black, no exceptions. Faces covered, identities blurred, power leveled by anonymity. YN and Jungkook danced beneath a chandelier that looked like it was made of frozen blood. "You passed," he whispered against her ear. She leaned into him, heart racing from more than just the waltz. "Did I?" "They wanted a queen. You gave them a revolution. Do they trust me now?" Jungkook smirked. "They fear you. That's better." They returned to Seoul at dawn, and by noon, their names, never printed, never spoken, were being whispered in dark corners across 5 cities. A new alliance had formed, and at the heart of it stood the woman everyone once mocked. That night, Jungkook took her again. Slow, intentional, devotional. In the middle of their room, he lifted her onto the grand piano, velvet grazing wood, her legs wrapping around him. His voice was low between kisses. "No more hiding. No more pretending," she whispered back. He slid into her like they had all the time in the world, because they did now. Because they ruled it. Her moans filled the space, his name breaking from her lips like a spell. And when he lowered his mouth between her legs again, she stopped breathing for an entire second. And that was how kings crowned their queens. Not in gold, in surrender. The power shift wasn't public, it never is, but those who lived in the undercurrent felt it, the way winds shift before a storm. Newspapers didn't say her name, no TV anchors whispered it, but bankers began pausing at her signature. Ambassadors started excusing themselves when she walked into charity events. Men with entire security details adjusted their ties when she walked past, silent and calm, in black heels and darker eyeliner. YN wasn't just Jungkook's wife now. She was the signal that the throne no longer needed to speak to rule. It was late evening when Jungkook handed her a file. "A senator," he said, voice flat. "He wants to run corruption cases against my import channels." YN flipped it open, scanning names, phone records, photographs, and a single weakness. His daughter, a compulsive gambler, an open wound. "You want him gone?" she asked. "No," Jungkook replied. "I want him reminded." She closed the file. "I'll handle it." He raised an eyebrow. "You?" She met his gaze, steady. "They fear you. They'll remember me." 2 days later, she entered the senator's private club, wearing a gray silk blouse and a smile that could end wars. She didn't bring guards, didn't need a weapon, only a small velvet box and the senator's dirty little secret. "Mrs. Jeon," he stammered when she appeared at his table. "What brings you here?" "Respect," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "I'm afraid I don't understand." She opened the velvet box. Inside, a single USB, labeled with his daughter's initials. The senator paled. "We could ruin her," YN said softly, "but we won't." We're not monsters, we're reminders. He swallowed hard. I hear you've been digging into things, she continued. So I came to remind you. Some roots go deeper than others. Touch ours and the entire forest burns. When she stood to leave, the senator didn't move. Not even to breathe. That night, Jungkook kissed her slowly, pressing her into the wall beside the fireplace, lips moving down her throat. You terrify them, he whispered against her skin. Do I scare you too? She asked, voice husky. He chuckled darkly. You undo me. Then he lifted her, carried her to the bedroom, and took his time proving it. In bed, beneath city lights and silk sheets, he watched her sleep. There were scars on her now, silent ones. Not from knives or bullets, but from knowing, from carrying power that once only belonged to men in suits and blood. And Jungkook, the Mafia king, the man who made war look like ballet, he admired her not because she matched him, but because she surpassed him. The next morning, the senator withdrew his investigation. An anonymous charity deposited millions into debt relief. The daughter disappeared from the tabloids. And the world turned on, unaware that one woman, dressed in gray silk and fire, had stopped a war. Later that week, Jungkook received a call. He didn't answer it. Instead, he turned to YN, watching her sip coffee on their balcony. They've called a meeting, he said. The circle wants us both to fly to Zurich. They want to merge powers. YN didn't blink. Do you trust them? No, she smirked. Then let's go teach them how to kneel. Zurich was frozen in snow, but the air inside the private chamber at the old cathedral-turned-council hall was thick with heat. Not warmth, power. Jungkook and YN entered through the east wing, their arrival wordless, unannounced, but completely expected. The circle waited, seated around the long stone table like a court of ancient kings. 12 chairs, 11 filled. The 12th was for her, not Jungkook, her. She came, said the woman with the white bob and wine lips. Impressive. She always does, Jungkook replied coolly. Y or N took the seat, slowly, precisely. The hem of her crimson coat whispered across the marble as she sat, legs crossed, eyes locked forward. The room had no windows, no press, no guards, just secrets suspended in candlelight. Why summon us? YN asked, her voice clear, calm, unbothered. An older man with steel hair spoke. Your influence is rising too fast, too wide. There are rules to this world. Jungkook's jaw tensed, but he stayed silent. YN smiled faintly. And yet, you called us to your table. The woman beside her narrowed her eyes. Because even royalty must be reminded, empires fall. YN leaned in slowly, resting her fingers on the ancient oak. Empires fall, she echoed, when they forget who built them. Silence. The man cleared his throat. We propose an alliance. You join the inner circle, merge your contacts, pool your cities. No more surprises. No more slaps, the woman added dryly. Y or N's lips twitched. And in return, she asked, you remain untouchable. Your name, your businesses, your records, all erased, like you never existed outside our blessing. Jungkook looked at her, waiting. He never answered for her anymore, not since the first time she walked into fire and walked back out with the ashes in her hand. Y or N stood slowly. I built power in shadows, in silence, in a world that laughed when I married a salesman. I was mocked, recorded, targeted, and I'm still here. She stepped around the table. I don't need your blessing. I am the empire now. She stopped at the head of the table, by the 13th chair, the one no one had dared sit in for years, the one reserved for legends. She sat, and no one objected. Not even the woman with the sharp tongue. Not even the man with 12 private banks and 4 governments in his pocket. And when Jungkook moved beside her, standing, not sitting, it was clear to all. The king had finally bent the knee to the queen. The merger happened silently. No papers, no signatures, just bowed heads, exchanged rings of obsidian, and encrypted nods. But the world changed the next day. Bank codes were rewritten, arms deals halted, assassinations canceled, governments paused. All because a woman in red walked into a room full of ghosts and spoke like thunder. Back in Seoul, YN stood on the balcony of their penthouse, the skyline glowing beneath her like a kingdom made of glass and sin. Jungkook came up behind her, arms around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. "Do you regret it?" he asked. She shook her head. "Number I regret staying silent for so long, but now..." She turned in his arms. "Now the world knows." He kissed her, slow, deep, final. Not as a beginning, but as a coronation. That night, they didn't make love. They claimed each other, in shadows, in whispers, in moans muffled by silk and mouths that knew how to worship. He knelt again, devoured her again, dragged her across the mattress with hands that once ended wars, and now existed only to hold her. When she came undone beneath him, trembling, breathless, he whispered against her thigh, "No king rules without his queen." 1 month later, a new name appeared in the world's most secure financial systems. One not registered, not legal, not traceable, just a single letter, V. The code name for the entity behind the world's most protected network. Anonymous, all-powerful, unseen. But insiders whispered what the V stood for. Not victory, not vendetta, venom. Because she didn't kill with swords, she killed with presence, and she never needed to raise her voice.